Welcome back. China has started building what will be one of the world's largest hydropower dams in Tibetan territory. This would be built on the Yarlung Sangpo River, which will cost approximately $167 billion and could potentially impact millions in India and Bangladesh. Here's why. The river flows downstream into Arunachal Pradesh and eventually into Bangladesh. However, Beijing has said that the scheme will prioritize ecological protection and boost local prosperity. Chinese Premier Li Qiang presided over a ceremony marking the start of construction on the Yarlung Sangpo River just before the river bends into India's Arunachal Pradesh as the Brahmaputra. The dam will be constructed at a major gorge in the Himalayas where the river makes a U-turn before flowing into Arunachal and eventually into Bangladesh. Once completed, the mega dam is expected to generate more than 300 billion kilowatt hours of electricity annually, which is enough to power over 300 million people. However, it could spell worry for India as Delhi keeps a close watch on its construction, as it could be a water bomb exacerbating floods in monsoons, or it could steal water in dry seasons. Remember, Beijing had planned the project for several years. It got the green signal in December last year, linking the development to the country's carbon neutrality targets and economic goals in the Tibet region. India's Ministry of External Affairs had earlier said that China had been urged to ensure that the interests of the downstream states of the Brahmaputra were not harmed by activities in upstream areas. Strategic Affairs expert Brahma Chellaney joins us now. Mr. Chellaney, how do you think this project is important for the Chinese government?
First, let's remember that this mega project was approved by China's National Assembly in March 2021, and satellite imagery since then suggests that the groundwork began much earlier than the recent groundbreaking ceremony by the Chinese premier. This project, once completed, will dwarf the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze. The Three Gorges Dam is the world's largest dam currently, but this Three Gorges Dam has caused immense devastation in downstream Yangtze. And the super dam on the Brahmaputra that China is now building is on a much larger scale. It's expected to generate 3 times as much hydropower as the Three Gorges Dam. So the devastation this super dam will cause to the Brahmaputra will likely be greater than the devastation caused by the Three Gorges Dam to the Yangtze.
Right. The Arunachal Chief Minister Pema Khandu has expressed concerns that the Brahmaputra and the Siang could dry up completely once this dam is completed. How do you think this is going to impact India's water resources?
The super dam is poised to alter the hydrological reality for millions of people living downstream. It could destabilize an already vulnerable Himalayan ecosystem and arm China with a powerful new lever over India. Let's remember that this ultra dam is being built just before the Brahmaputra exits Chinese controlled territory and enters India. So by building this super dam, Beijing gains the capacity to manipulate cross-border flows, especially in the critical dry season. China can also withhold vital sediment and potentially weaponize water in future disputes. Excuse me. Sediment is a nutrient-rich element which rivers carry from the mountains. And when a river floods during the monsoonal season, as the Brahmaputra does every year, it spreads the silt-laden waters onto the plains, helping to refertilize overworked soils and to sustain fisheries. So by capturing silt-laden waters before they reach India and Bangladesh, the super dam will starve downstream plains of nutrient-rich sediment, and the delta in Bangladesh, which is already under pressure from rising seas, will shrink further and become more vulnerable to salt water intrusion and flooding. And equally worrying is the likely disruption of the Brahmaputra's natural flooding cycle. We know that every summer during the monsoons, the Brahmaputra overruns its banks and floods vast areas in India and in Bangladesh and causes great destruction, including deaths. But these seasonal floods, far from being destructive by default, play a vital ecological role. They flush out toxins, they recharge groundwater, and they deposit fresh layers of fertile soil. So this interruption of the annual flooding cycle could spell disaster for Assam's agrarian economy and for Bangladesh, where millions depend on the Brahmaputra's rhythms for their livelihoods.
Right. Mr. Chellaney, even in the past, we have seen how China has refused to cooperate or share data on rivers, especially in the monsoon season when there could be flooding. They've not shared the data with India, especially during times of crisis between the two countries or when the two countries were embroiled in some sort of conflict. What is the likelihood of China weaponizing the world's largest dam that they are building now in the Tibetan region?
It's a good question. China has regularly weaponized the sharing of hydrological data, even though the sharing of such data is based on bilateral agreements with India, and India pays for such data in advance. And yet, periodically, China has halted the sharing of hydrological data to express displeasure with Indian actions or statements. Similarly, by building the super dam just before the Brahmaputra enters India, China potentially is creating leverage that it can weaponize. It'll have the capacity to manipulate cross-border flows. It could use the dam actually to reinforce its territorial claim to Arunachal Pradesh. Let's not forget that super dam is coming up right on the Tibet-Arunachal Pradesh border, and the fact that China shows Arunachal Pradesh as part of China, clearly that element should not be lost in understanding the larger implications of this super dam.
Right. My final question to you would be, China is spending about 167 billion US dollars on building this mega project, which will be the world's largest dam. How soon do you think China will be able to complete it? And number two, does India have any options at all?
China, in contrast to India, India's largest dam since independence has been the 2,000 megawatt Tehri Dam. The 2,000 megawatt Tehri Dam is not even large by Chinese standards. China really has the capacity to build giant dams and to build them in record time. We have seen that time and again, that China has managed to build giant dams in record time. They have done so, for example, on the Mekong, just before the Mekong River enters Southeast Asia. They have built 11 giant dams on the Mekong. Each was built in record time. Even the Three Gorges Dam was built in relatively shorter time than many outsiders had expected. So we should not forget that given China's record, that this super dam on the Brahmaputra might actually become a reality within a few years. Unlike the projects in India, the hydropower projects tend to take many, many years. In fact, some projects take even decades in India. By contrast, we should expect that this super dam would become a reality within some years.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chellaney, for joining us on a very important story with long-term strategic implications for India.